Hey adventurers, so today is going to be another book review. This is going to be for The Maze Runner by James Dashner, which is the first book in the series by the same name. So this is a dystopian sci-fi. It's very much a YA story, but not so frustratingly YA as many of the dystopian YA science fiction novels have been and are. So let's see. The Maze Runner is the first book in the series by the same name. I just mentioned that. This book came out during the boom in popularity of this sort of book, meaning the YA dystopian novels, along with things like Hunger Games and Divergent. I like the dystopian genre quite a bit, but I hadn't read these yet, these meaning the Maze Runner books. So I wanted to read the first one and see what I thought, even though it's kind of past its prime in many ways. This is a very atmospheric book. The setting is rather vividly described, and it definitely feels like you're in the maze with the characters. I suspect this is largely because we're inside the head of our main character and seeing things through his eyes. Before I continue on with this review, though, I'd just quickly like to say if you're liking what you're seeing from an Erudite adventure, we'd really appreciate it if you'd like, comment, and subscribe. It's also a really cool setting. I've loved mazes and the idea of them all my life, or at least since I first learned the story of Theseus and the Minotaur, and there's really not enough good stories that utilize them in a major way. But I also love mini games and things that sit nestled inside the story. So specifically talking about some sort of game that's part of the story, or I use the phrase mini games here, and that's specifically in like MMORPGs and stuff like that, where you go and play a little game to get extra money or whatever the point of the game or of the mini game is. And especially mini games that are very puzzle oriented, that really make you think, that really make you have to try and figure something out. That's the type of stuff that I really love seeing in any type of story, whether it's a movie or a TV show or a video game or a book or anything. That's what I want to see in a story. That's not the only thing I want to see, but I do love seeing that. That's what truly made me enjoy this book. And yes, it was survival, and yes, it was sci-fi and dystopian and fast-paced and interesting, but it was also that there was something bigger to it as well. Something we can't explain yet. Again, I clearly didn't write that very clearly, but what I'm trying to say here is there's something greater going on in the world, in this story, and we're just getting a little tiny piece of what that answer is, and hopefully in the following books we will be getting more answers to that question. I also really appreciate that the romance was not central to this plot, as so often is the case with these YA dystopian novels. The story here was trying to find a way out of the maze. That was the entire story, was how do we get out of this maze? And then why were they put into the maze to begin with? And I love seeing that. I love it being a very focused story, there's a single point that you're trying to get to, and then so the single point is let's get out of the maze, and then that something bigger that I mentioned is, what is this maze? Why are we here? What were we put in here to begin with? Why are we having all these weird memories, stuff like that. Overall, I was very pleasantly surprised with this book, and I was happy to find that I still enjoyed the genre, especially from the books that came out all at that same time, that are like Hunger Games or Divergent or Maze Runner, stuff like that. It's nice to see that I still am enjoying these books because I enjoy the setting so much. And I didn't realize this at the time of writing the review, but how do I phrase this? I didn't realize that I was supposed to also write and review my review for the second book in this series, which is the Scorch trials. So I'm gonna kind of wing that off the top of my head and see what comes out. Basically, I liked the Scorch trials as well. I didn't love it as much. Again, very descriptive writing, very engaging writing. The story is, I don't have any issue with the story. I thought it was interesting. The questions that are brought up, the things that you have to find out the answer for in order to continue on, the very mini game style or testing style of game, where it's one thing that leads to the next thing that leads to the next thing, and you've got to do them all sequentially in order to escape type thing. The escape room, I guess, type of story. I like that. What else can I say about this one? Again, we get more characters, a lot more characters in this book. There's a lot of politics within just the groups that we're dealing with, that are, it's not politics in terms of dealing with modern day politics. It is politics in that the characters have different, the groups of characters have their own system, their own society essentially, and those societies are interacting, and we're seeing how that plays out, and I found that really interesting as well. The overall story of the Scorch trials I didn't enjoy as much. I thought it lost a bit of its charm after we got out of book one, out of the events of book one, but I think the idea of this series is still really enjoyable, and the way that things are happening, and the way that the government, I'll say, is not allowing certain things to happen, not allowing them to play out in the way that they could. So there's some things in this series that I really appreciate the world building, even though it does seem to be, as with most dystopians, it does seem to be Earth in the future sometime, and it's cool to see it. What else can I really say about it? Again, like I mentioned, the description, it's very vividly described. You feel like you're in the world, you feel like you're in this desert setting, all that kind of stuff, and it's really cool to be able to feel like you're part of that world. I think the narrator, I listened to both of these on audiobook, and I think the narrator does a really good job with that as well. Our main characters that we're following are interesting enough, and I am excited to continue this series, continue to see where this series takes me, and see if I continue enjoying the books. I would hope that book 2 is just kind of got a little bit of middle book syndrome, and I guess there's 5 books in the main series. So book 1, I really like book 1. I'm hoping that books 3, 4, and 5 pick it back up, and not to say that I disliked Scorch Trials, but I don't know exactly what I would rate Maze Runner, maybe a 4, maybe a 4.5, something like that. But if that's the case, then I would probably rate Scorch Trials like a 3.5 or a 4 or something like that. So I still enjoyed it quite a bit, just not as much as the first one. So that is my thoughts and review of The Maze Runner and The Scorch Trials by James Dashner. This is the first 2 books in the Maze Runner series. I did not plan on doing my review of The Scorch Trials, but now that I have, I guess we're doing that as well, and that's okay. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite adventure. We posted these every Monday and Thursday, and also on Saturdays at the moment. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys again soon. Stay well.